Sometimes the hardest conversations are with the people who've already decided they don't like you. You can feel it in their tone, their eyes, the way they keep their answers short. And no matter what you do, it feels like you're walking into a room where the verdict has already been read. That's the part that hurts. Not just the rejection, but the unfairness of not even getting a chance to show who you really are. It can make you feel small, defensive, or ready to just give up and match their energy. But here's the truth, the way you speak in those moments says more about your character than their opinion ever could. And when you learn how to hold your ground with calm, steady words, without chasing their approval or proving yourself, you take back the power they never actually had over you. Most of us don't like to admit it, but there's a certain sting that comes when you know someone just doesn't like you. You notice it in the small ways. The look that lingers a little too long, the pause before they respond, the way their words feel colder than the room you're standing in. It's not always about what's said. It's about what's withheld. And in that space, it's easy to start questioning yourself, replaying conversations, trying to figure out what you did wrong or how to fix it. That's a heavy place to live, but there's another way to approach it. One that doesn't shrink you down or push you into proving your worth. It's about holding on to who you are while still being able to speak with steadiness and respect. When you can do that, you take the tension out of the air and put yourself back in control of your side of the conversation. When emotions run high, the first thing that usually goes is our calm. It's like the louder the moment feels, the faster our heart races, the more our mind scrambles to either defend, explain, or fight back. And most of the time, we're not thinking about what we're saying. We're just reacting. That's how misunderstandings grow legs. That's how small tensions turn into deep cuts. The problem isn't just the words being thrown around, it's the energy behind them. When someone comes at you heated, they're not looking for a well-reasoned point. They're looking for you to match their temperature. And if you do, you've already lost the chance to lead the tone of the conversation. Speaking with calm in that moment doesn't mean you're ignoring the problem or letting someone off the hook. It means you're keeping the conversation in a place where it can still be productive. Anger has a way of hijacking the whole thing. It shifts the focus from the actual issue to who can outshout or outshame the other. When you stay calm, you keep the focus where it belongs. You stop feeding the emotional fire and start giving it less oxygen. Here's what calm really is. It's control, not over the other person, but over yourself. It's the pause before you speak. It's the decision to keep your voice steady when you want to raise it. It's choosing your words because they're the right ones, not just the first ones that come to mind. That's not weakness. That's not passivity. That's strength with a steady hand. People remember how you handled yourself under pressure a lot longer than they remember the details of the argument. In real life, that might look like taking a slow breath before you respond. It might look like letting the other person finish without interrupting, even when you already know you disagree. It might mean saying, "I hear what you're saying," before you explain your side, not because you're conceding, because you're signaling that you're not here to battle, you're here to talk. Those small moves have a way of diffusing heat without you even realizing it. There's another layer to this, though. Sometimes our calm isn't tested by strangers or people we barely know. It's tested by the people closest to us, the ones whose words cut deeper because they know exactly where to aim. In those moments, it's tempting to respond with the same force they gave you. But that just turns the whole thing into a power struggle. When you hold your calm there, you're not just protecting the conversation, you're protecting the relationship. You're keeping the door open for resolution instead of slamming it shut with more damage. It's not about pretending you're not upset. It's about making sure your upset doesn't take the wheel. Because the truth is, the person who can stay calm when everyone else is losing it, that's the person who sets the tone. That's the person who walks away without regrets about what they said or how they said it. And that's the kind of strength you can carry into every conversation, no matter how high the emotions run. Holding your ground without holding a grudge is one of the hardest balances to find in a relationship. When someone crosses a line, disrespects you, or dismisses what you're saying, it's natural to feel the urge to either push back hard or quietly store that hurt away for later. One feels like defense, the other like protection. But both can end up costing you more than you realize, because holding your ground is about making it clear where you stand, while holding a grudge is about carrying the weight of resentment long after the moment has passed. They might look similar from the outside, but they feel very different on the inside. When you hold your ground, you're saying, "This is where I stand, and I'm not moving from it." It's not said with a raised voice or a clenched jaw. It's said with a steady tone and a calm certainty. You're not trying to punish the other person. You're not trying to win. You're simply drawing a line so the relationship can stay healthy. But when you hold a grudge, it's different. That's when the hurt becomes a shadow you carry into every conversation. Whether it belongs there or not, it keeps the past alive in a way that doesn't give the present a fair chance. The truth is, you can be firm without being bitter. You can stand your ground without keeping score. And that's important because grudges don't just affect how you see the other person. They start to change how you see yourself. You become more guarded, less open, and more ready to assume the worst. It's a slow erosion of trust, not just in them, but in your own ability to handle conflict well. In real life, this balance shows up in small, everyday moments. Maybe a friend cancels plans last minute. Again, holding your ground might sound like, I really value my time, so if this keeps happening, I'm going to have to stop making plans. You're clear, you're direct, and you've set a boundary. Holding a grudge, though, would sound like silently agreeing to see them again, but walking in already annoyed, ready to keep a tally of every little thing they do wrong. One protects your dignity. The other poisons your connection. The key is understanding that boundaries are about respect, not revenge. You set them because you care about the relationship enough to keep it honest. You let go of grudges because you care about yourself enough to not live in the past. Forgiving doesn't mean forgetting, and it doesn't mean you allow the same hurt to happen again. It means you've decided that the incident won't own you. Holding your ground without holding a grudge is choosing to address the problem in the moment so it doesn't grow into something heavier later. It's being clear without being cruel. It's remembering that your goal is not to win against the other person. It's to stay aligned with your own values. And when you can do that, you walk away lighter, knowing you stood for yourself without closing your heart in the process. Choosing respect over reaction is one of those things that sounds simple until you're in the middle of a heated moment. When someone says something that stings, cuts you off, or questions your intentions, your first instinct is often to fire something back, something sharp, something that lets them know you won't be walked over. And in that split second, it can feel justified. But here's the problem. Once you let your reaction lead, you've already handed them the steering wheel. You're no longer speaking from who you are. You're speaking from the emotion of the moment. Respect in that space doesn't mean you agree with them. It doesn't mean you're letting their words slide. It means you're staying grounded enough to respond in a way that reflects your values, not just your feelings. Because feelings, especially in conflict, can be like waves. They rise fast, crash hard, and leave you picking up the pieces. Respect is the anchor. It keeps you steady while the storm passes. The real challenge is that we often confuse a calm, respectful response with weakness. We think, if I don't match their energy, they'll think they can walk all over me. But the opposite is true. Anyone can get loud. Anyone can be reactive. It takes far more strength to keep your voice even, to choose your words carefully, and to hold the conversation in a place where it can still be productive. That's not weakness. That's composure, and people notice it. In real life, this could be as small as pausing before you answer a snide remark. It might be saying, I'm going to take a minute before I respond. Instead of snapping back, it could be lowering your tone when there's rises. These moments don't just de-escalate tension. They set a tone that says, I'm here to solve this, not fuel it. And when you do that, you invite the other person, even if only subconsciously, to meet you where you are instead of where they started. It's also important to remember that choosing respect isn't about doing it for them. It's about doing it for you. You're the one who has to live with what you said and how you said it. You're the one who will replay the conversation in your head later. Respecting yourself in that moment means protecting yourself from the regret of going too far, of saying something you can't take back. Sometimes the other person won't match your tone. They'll stay heated, stay defensive, maybe even take your calm as an opening to push harder. That's when your respect matters most, because you're not controlling them, you're controlling you. You're proving to yourself that you can keep your dignity intact, no matter how messy the other side gets. And that's the kind of power that doesn't just help in one argument, it shapes every relationship you have. Choosing respect over reaction is a discipline. It's deciding again that your character matters more than your impulse. And when you make that choice, you walk away knowing you handled yourself in a way you can stand by long after the moment has passed. There are moments in relationships when silence speaks louder than anything you could say. It's not the comfortable kind of silence, like sitting with someone you trust and not needing to fill the air. It's the heavy kind, the kind that lingers after an argument or shows up in the space where connection used to be. You feel it in their distance, in the way they avoid your eyes, in the pauses that go on too long. And if you've been there, you know it's not just the absence of words, it's the presence of something unspoken. Silence can be a shield. Sometimes people use it to protect themselves, to avoid saying something they can't take back. Other times it's a wall, a way of shutting you out, sending a message without having to own the words. And here's the tricky part: when someone goes silent, your mind doesn't stay still. It starts filling in the blanks. You begin writing the script for what they must be thinking or feeling, often in the most negative way possible. That's how distance grows. Not from the silence itself, but from the stories we start telling ourselves in it. The challenge is knowing when silence is wisdom and when it's avoidance. There are moments when staying quiet is the most respectful choice you can make, like when the heat of an argument has climbed so high that any words spoken will only wound. Choosing silence, there is giving space for both people to cool down so the conversation can happen without tearing each other apart. But there are also times when silence becomes a way to withhold love, to punish, or to avoid dealing with the truth. And that kind of silence doesn't protect a relationship. It erodes it. In real life, this might look like two people lying in the same bed, both scrolling on their phones, neither one saying what's really on their mind. Or it might be you sitting across from someone at dinner, trying to start small talk while they answer in one word because they're still holding on to something from earlier. That quiet can feel louder than any argument because it's telling you something is broken but not giving you a way to fix it. When you're the one feeling the pull towards silence, it's worth asking yourself what purpose it's serving. Are you using it to gather your thoughts so you can speak with clarity? Or are you using it to avoid vulnerability, to keep from admitting you're hurt? If it's the first, that silence can be a tool. If it's the second, it's a wedge, and the longer it sits there, the harder it is to remove. The truth is, silence has power. It can either be the pause that saves a conversation or the void that swallows it. The difference lies in what comes after. If the silence leads to a calm, honest exchange, it becomes part of the healing. If it stretches on without resolution, it becomes the conversation you never have. And those are the ones that quietly end relationships. Protecting your peace in difficult conversations doesn't mean avoiding them. It means learning how to walk into them without losing yourself in the process. A lot of people think that peace is about staying out of conflict altogether, but real peace isn't the absence of disagreement. It's the ability to handle disagreement without it taking over your mind, your mood, or your sense of worth. Because if every tense exchange leaves you drained, resentful, or second guessing yourself for days, you're giving that moment more power than it deserves. The hardest part is that difficult conversations are often with people we care about most. That's what makes it so personal. You can brush off a rude comment from a stranger, but when it comes from a partner, a friend, a family member, it lands differently. It digs in deeper because it's tied to trust, history, and expectations. And when emotions rise, your peace can start slipping away before you even realize it. You're no longer thinking about what's being said. You're reacting to how it's making you feel. Protecting your peace starts with knowing your triggers. If certain words, tones, or subjects send you straight into defense mode, name them. Recognizing them is the first step in deciding how you'll respond instead of letting them decide for you. Sometimes that means taking a breath before you speak. Sometimes it's asking to pause the conversation so you can come back to it with a clear head. That pause isn't running away. It's making sure the version of you that shows up is the one you can stand by later. It also means knowing what you are and aren't responsible for. You're responsible for your words, your tone, and your behavior. You are not responsible for managing every reaction the other person has. When you carry that weight, you start bending yourself to keep the peace on their side, even if it means breaking it on yours. True peace isn't bought at the expense of your self-respect. It's built on staying aligned with your values, even if the other person doesn't like your boundaries. In real life, protecting your peace might look like calmly saying, "I understand this matters to you, but I'm not going to be spoken to that way," and holding that line even if they push back. It might mean refusing to match someone's anger with your own, no matter how much they try to provoke you. It's choosing to stay steady, not because you're unaffected, but because you know that the minute you lose your calm, the conversation stops being about the issue and starts being about the argument. The truth is, peace is something you carry with you into the conversation, not something you wait for the other person to give you. And when you protect it, you leave the room knowing that no matter how the discussion went, You stayed grounded, you stayed clear, and you stayed you. That's the kind of peace that doesn't just survive difficult conversations. It changes how you approach them for the rest of your life. Staying kind without being a doormat is about learning the difference between compassion and self-erasure. A lot of people mistake kindness for endless giving, for always saying yes, for taking on the role of peacemaker at any cost. And for a while, it can even feel good to be the person who smooths things over, who keeps everyone comfortable. But if you've ever walked away from a conversation or a relationship feeling drained, unappreciated, or quietly resentful, you know that too much of that kind of kindness comes at a cost. It costs you your energy, your self-respect, and eventually your sense of identity. True kindness has boundaries. It's rooted in respect for others and for yourself. When you're kind in a healthy way, you're not sacrificing your needs to keep someone else happy. You're not tolerating disrespect just to avoid conflict. You're making a choice to treat people well without abandoning your own dignity. That's the difference between kindness and people-pleasing. Kindness is a gift. People-pleasing is a transaction you make hoping for approval in return. The tricky part is that when you start setting boundaries, people who've grown used to your over-giving might call you selfish, cold, or difficult. They might push back because the new version of you doesn't serve them the way the old one did. This is where you have to remember, boundaries are not unkind. Boundaries are the structure that allows your kindness to be real instead of resentful. Without them, your kindness gets twisted into something people take advantage of, and you end up empty. In real life, staying kind without being a doormat might look like calmly saying no without over-explaining. It might be offering help when you have the capacity and gracefully declining when you don't. It could be listening to someone vent without taking on the responsibility to fix everything for them. Sometimes it's as simple as saying, "I hear you, but I can't do that for you," and letting that be enough. These small acts keep you generous without leaving you depleted. It's also important to check your intentions. Are you doing something kind because you genuinely want to, or because you're afraid of how the other person will react if you don't? Fear-based kindness isn't really kindness. It's self-protection dressed up to look like generosity. When you act from that place, you're not showing up as your authentic self, and over time, that chips away at your confidence. The truth is, kindness is most powerful when it comes from a place of choice, not obligation. You can offer patience without tolerating disrespect. You can forgive without forgetting the lesson. You can give without giving yourself away. When you live from that place, your kindness becomes stronger, not softer. It stops being something people can exploit and starts being something they genuinely value. Being kind without being a doormat is not about hardening your heart. It's about holding it open in a way that doesn't leave it unguarded. It's choosing to treat people well because that's who you are, not because you're afraid of what will happen if you don't. And that choice, over time, builds a kind of respect that no one can take from you. Separating your worth from someone's opinion is one of the most freeing skills you can learn, but it's also one of the hardest to practice. From the time we're young, we start tying how we feel about ourselves to how other people respond to us. A smile means we're doing well. A frown means we messed up. Approval feels like validation, and criticism feels like a verdict. By the time we're adults, this pattern is so ingrained that one person's disapproval can unravel our confidence in seconds. It's not just about not liking what they said. It's about believing it says something true about who we are. The problem is, other people's opinions are shaped by their own experiences, biases, and moods. They're not an objective measure of your worth. They're a reflection of their perspective. If someone is having a bad day, if they carry unresolved hurt, if they see the world through a lens of criticism, their opinion of you will be colored by all of that. And yet, we so often take their words and wear them like a name tag, as if they've just told us something factual about ourselves. Separating your worth means learning to pause before you take something personally. It means asking, is this about me or is this about them? It's recognizing that someone can dislike you, disagree with you, or even misunderstand you, and none of that changes your value. Your worth isn't something that goes up and down depending on who approves of you that day. It's constant. But believing that requires practice, because our emotions don't always get the memo right away. In real life, this might look like receiving criticism at work and using it as feedback for your performance without letting it turn into a statement about your intelligence or capability. It might mean hearing that someone doesn't like the way you handled a situation and accepting that their perspective is valid for them without feeling like you have to rewrite your entire character to match it. It could be as simple as not defending yourself against every opinion because you know you don't have to win everyone over to still be worthy. This isn't about ignoring feedback or refusing to grow. It's about filtering what you hear so you can take in what's useful without swallowing what's toxic. You can learn from someone's perspective without making it the mirror you measure yourself by. When you do that, you stop living in constant reaction to how other people see you, and you start making choices based on who you actually are. The truth is, no one else gets to assign your value. Not a partner, not a friend, not a boss, not even family. That's yours alone to define. And the more you anchor yourself in that truth, the less power anyone's opinion has to shake you. You become steady, even in the face of disapproval. And from that place, you can show up in relationships with more confidence, more honesty, and more freedom, because you're no longer negotiating your worth every time someone has something to say about you. Feeling attacked is one of the quickest ways to lose your footing in a conversation. It doesn't matter if the attack is intentional or not. Maybe it's a sharp tone, a loaded comment, or a criticism that cuts deeper than it should. The moment it hits, something in you flares. Your pulse spikes, your chest tightens, your mind starts racing for either a defense or a counterattack. And in that space, steadiness feels like the last thing you're capable of. That's because our instincts tell us to protect ourselves, and protection, for most of us, looks like either fighting back or shutting down. But here's the problems. Both of those responses pull us away from what we actually need in that moment: clarity, control, and connection to our own values. Finding steadiness when you feel attacked isn't about pretending you're unaffected. It's not about smiling through something hurtful or letting it slide. It's about holding on to enough of yourself that you can choose your next step instead of letting the heat of the moment choose it for you. That's what steadiness really is. Not the absence of emotion, but the presence of control. You're still feeling the sting, you're still aware of the tension, but you're not letting those feelings run the show. Part of what makes these moments so hard is that feeling attacked often triggers something older than the moment itself. Maybe it reminds you of a time you weren't heard, or a time someone used their words to make you feel small. Your body doesn't always separate the past from the present, so the reaction is bigger than what's in front of you. That's why a small comment can sometimes feel like a huge betrayal. And that's also why steadiness is a practice. It's not just about handling this moment well, it's about teaching your body and mind that you can be safe, even in conflict. The first step to steadiness is buying yourself a little time. That can be as simple as taking a breath before you speak, or even saying, "Give me a second to think about that." It sounds small, but those seconds are powerful. They're the gap between reaction and response. In that space, you get to decide if you're going to meet the attack with more heat, or if you're going to anchor yourself so you can respond from a place that actually serves you. In real life, this might look like being on the receiving end of a partner's frustration. They accuse you of not caring, even though you know you've been showing up in ways they may not see. Your first instinct might be to fire back, to list every single thing you've done to prove them wrong. But steadiness says, let's slow this down. It might sound like, "I hear that you feel like I don't care. That's not my intention, but I want to understand why you feel that way." In that moment, you're not rolling over and you're not swinging back. You're holding your ground without letting the attack pull you out of alignment with yourself. It's important to be clear here. Steadiness doesn't mean you have to stay in a harmful situation. If someone is verbally abusive or crossing lines that aren't okay with you, protecting yourself might mean leaving the conversation entirely. Steadiness, in that case, might look like saying, "I'm not willing to be spoken to like this, so I'm stepping away until we can talk respectfully." That's not weakness. That's you choosing to remove yourself from a space that doesn't allow for a healthy exchange. The other piece of finding steadiness is separating the delivery from the content. When people feel frustrated, they often wrap valid points in a delivery that's hard to hear. Raised voices, accusation, sarcasm. If you can sift through the delivery to find the core of what they're trying to express, you gain more control over your own reaction. You might not agree with them, but you can at least respond to the heart of the issue instead of getting lost in the sting of how it was said. Another thing to keep in mind is that not every attack is personal, even if it feels that way. Sometimes people lash out because of stress, fear, or hurt that has nothing to do with you. That doesn't make it okay, but it does mean you don't have to internalize every sharp edge that comes your way. You can acknowledge the moment for what it is, a person's pain spilling over, without letting it define you or dictate your worth. Steadiness is also about knowing what you stand for before you walk into the conversation. If you know you value honesty, respect, and listening, then those become your anchor points. No matter how chaotic the exchange gets, you can keep coming back to those values as your guide. They give you a reference point when your emotions are pushing you towards something you'll regret later. It's worth saying that steadiness takes practice. You won't get it right every time, and that's okay. There will be moments when the heat of the moment gets the best of you. But each time you slow yourself down, each time you choose not to match someone's worst moment with one of your own, you're strengthening that muscle. Over time, steadiness becomes less about something you have to force and more about who you are. In practice, steadiness often looks quiet from the outside, but it feels powerful on the inside. It's your heart still beating fast, but your voice staying calm. It's knowing you could match their energy, but choosing not to. It's being able to leave the conversation and look yourself in the mirror without flinching. And that's something no attack can take from you. The truth is, feeling attacked will always be uncomfortable. No one likes to feel misunderstood, accused, or cornered. But discomfort isn't the same as danger. You can stand in that space, hold your center, and decide how you want to move forward. Sometimes that means addressing the issue directly. Sometimes it means stepping away. And sometimes it means letting the moment pass without engagement. Whatever the choice, steadiness gives you the power to make it intentionally, not emotionally. When you can find that steadiness in the middle of an attack, you take back control of the one thing that's always yours, yourself. And that's what makes you unshakable, even when the ground beneath the conversation feels like it's shifting. You stop being at the mercy of other people's moods or methods, and you start living in a way that reflects your values, no matter what comes to you. That's not about winning the moment. That's about winning yourself back every single time. When you walk into a room and the air feels heavy, it's not just about temperature. It's about the atmosphere people create without even speaking. You can feel it in the way eyes avoid yours, in the way conversations stay shallow, in the way your body instinctively tenses because something in you senses you're not fully welcome. A cold room doesn't always mean hostility. Sometimes it's distance. Sometimes it's unresolved tension. Sometimes it's simply people carrying their own moods and walls. But here's the thing. In those moments, someone will set the tone. And if you're not intentional, that tone will set itself, and it won't be one you're proud of. The temptation in a cold room is to match the temperature, to withdraw, to speak less, to keep your face neutral so you don't give too much away. It feels safe in the moment, but it also feeds the very distance you wish wasn't there. People can stay trapped in this kind of silent standoff for years, each one waiting for the other to thaw first. It's easy to forget that warmth doesn't just happen naturally in relationships. It's something someone has to choose, especially when it's hardest to give. Setting the tone in a cold room doesn't mean pretending everything is fine when it isn't. It doesn't mean plastering on a fake smile or overcompensating with forced cheer. It's more subtle than that. It's about deciding that you're going to lead with the kind of presence you wish you were walking into. That might mean greeting people by name when others would skip the small talk. It might mean making eye contact when the easy thing is to look at your phone. It might mean letting your voice carry a calm steadiness, even when there's tension in the air. It's not about pushing your mood on others. It's about anchoring your own so you're not pulled down by theirs. Part of this is understanding that you can't control how others receive you. You can't force warmth where someone has built walls, but you can control whether you add another layer of ice or bring something softer into the space. When you're grounded in your own identity and worth, you stop needing the room's approval to decide how you'll show up. That's the difference between reacting to the environment and shaping it. In practice, this takes self-awareness. Before you respond to the energy around you, you have to check your own. If you're already feeling defensive, frustrated, or insecure, it's going to be easy for those feelings to leak out without you realizing it. Taking a breath before you speak, giving yourself a moment to think before you respond. That's not hesitation. That's leadership in its simplest form. You're choosing not to be a mirror of the coldness, but a source of something warmer. Sometimes this will go unnoticed. The room won't suddenly light up. People won't always match your effort, and that's okay. You're not setting the tone for instant reward. You're doing it because it aligns with who you want to be. Over time, people notice consistency. They may not say it out loud, but the steadiness you bring can shift how they feel in your presence. That's the long game. And there's a deeper layer here. Sometimes the cold room is in your own home. Maybe it's your partner who's distant or a family member who's shut down. Those moments feel more personal because the stakes are higher. The urge to shut down and return is strong because it feels like protecting yourself. But if the relationship matters, Setting the tone might mean initiating a calm conversation when you'd rather retreat. It might mean choosing patience over proving your point. It might mean being willing to stay open even when you're not met with the same openness right away. That's not weakness. That's strength under control. This doesn't mean letting yourself be mistreated. Warmth without boundaries is just enabling. If someone is consistently cold to you in a way that's dismissive or disrespectful, setting the tone might actually mean creating some space, not chasing their approval. You can choose warmth without choosing to stay in every room. You can carry dignity into the spaces you enter and still protect your peace by not staying where your presence is only met with contempt. The reality is, cold rooms are part of life. You'll face them in workplaces, in friendships, in family gatherings, even in your own kitchen. But every time you walk into one, you have the opportunity to decide, will I match the temperature or will I bring something different? That decision shapes not just how others experience you, but how you experience yourself. Because when you learn to set the tone instead of absorbing it, you stop giving away your emotional state to whatever's around you. You start living from the inside out. And when you can do that, when you can walk into the cold, stay steady, and still carry a quiet warmth, you become the person others feel safe around, even if they can't explain why. That's the kind of influence that lasts longer than any single conversation. That's leadership in relationships, and it starts with one choice in one room that feels colder than you'd like.